don't usually kind of take requests for speakers, but today, I think it was Alice said, please could Dave Kingswood speak. So I'm excited. Anyone else excited to hear what Dave's got to share? No pressure, Dave. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Hello. Really good to be with you today. I just want to share a few thoughts. I was doing a bit of reflection this week because 17 years ago this week, I was stood in Somervale School's field and I was serving a Welton Baptist event called Big Top. Anyone remember Big Top? It was kind of precursor to Enfest, and I was the youth and children's worker at the time, and it was a really full-on week for me, completely mad when I look back at it, actually. Not only were we running a skate park, there was kids group for loads of kids, there was evening and afternoon events, but crucially, my wife, Carly, was very, very pregnant. And in fact, my son Noah was so cooked that he was due to be born. Is that the right word? He was due to be born on the first Sunday of Big Top Week. And that was meant to run the whole of that week. It was meant to run from the Saturday to the Saturday, and he was due on the first Sunday. So I had a plan in place to basically make this work. And what I did was I set Big Top Week up so that in all the stuff I was doing, at any moment I could drop it, pass it over to somebody else, and I could get up the hospital a bit lively. Now, Noah waited until Thursday lunchtime to turn up. He kind of first gave us his first warning shot on that Thursday lunchtime, and he actually turned up on Thursday night, and he was 4 days late, and he was completely without apology for keeping me waiting. Now, my wife, Carly, for many of you, as you know her, knows her way around a child's brain due to being a child therapist. She works with children. And she told me at the time that it was very important that when Noah was born, that I was to unbutton my shirt and hold him against my chest. Skin on skin contact, she said, really matters. Well, I trust her, so I did that because complete connection between me and my boy needed to happen. And I can still remember that moment, maybe some of you can, when the midwife passed me this tiny chap and I awkwardly cradled him, trying to hold his head and his bum at the same time. But let me tell you, in those moments, love is not a big enough word. You're flooded with emotion, you're flooded with protection and terror of whether you're going to be any good at this dad stuff. But bigger than any of that, you're filled with hope. Hope that he will have the best life ever. You see, in those moments, it's perfect, it's fragile, and it's full of joy. We'll cut forward 17 years. I've learned a few things along the way. One is that you need to label everything in your fridge if you want any food left. But the other thing is that hope that I had on that day that Noah was born is just as powerful, just as consuming, and as pure as it was on the day that he came into the world. Life, however, has a way of testing that sometimes. Stuff goes wrong, doesn't it? Sometimes things go really wrong. We laugh and we journey together, and as he's nearly grown up, no doubt he will be leaving us all too soon. And I know, having been a dad for all this time though, that wherever he goes, whatever he does, and whatever he feels about me, my love, joy and hope about his life will never fail. It was made and secured the day that I heard he was coming into our lives. You see, our lives are a funny old thing, aren't they? I've always found it fascinating that this weird little ball floating around in space has got all this incredibly complex stuff going on it. I was looking at some photos from a telescope that was launched a couple of years ago. It was showing us that there are around 6 billion planets, in our galaxy, and so far the James Webb Telescope is increasingly finding more and more galaxies, and they reckon by the time the project is actually finished they'll be up to around 200 billion galaxies, each with billions of planets each. And then there are even more galaxies past what that telescope can see. So as I say, I know all of in this amphitheatre there are two types of things that are happening right now. One are the brains that are saying, that's incredible, Dave, I can't think of anything more beautiful and complex. And then the other one says, stop talking, Dave, that's too big and it's too scary. Either way, in all these discoveries, scientists are saying that what we have here on Earth is not only rare, but it is absolutely incredible. So when you think about me sat in that chair in Portland on the 24th of August 2006, surrounded by 200 billion galaxies, I was completely tiny, and yet what was happening was completely incredible. When you think about it like that, your view or your sense of how the world is working can change a bit, because you realize that small thing that happens is part of a much, much larger picture. Now, around 2,000 years ago, a man called Jesus, living in Israel, was coming alongside people, and he was talking about moments in their lives and telling them that there was more going on than what their eyes were telling them right in front of them. He would talk about this idea that actually the world and the universe had a purpose and was headed someplace. And this whole thing actually had a plan. And there was a creator behind it all. He talked about that what happens in a moment matters. That it actually really, really matters. And that there is a huge God who is in all of it and with all of it. Now that's a big thought. Now, that might be one that kind of fills you with all kinds of emotions. Maybe it fills you with hope and purpose, or maybe this idea of God has been used against you in the past and maybe it's hurt you somehow. And if it has, I want to say that I'm really sorry, because the God of the Bible, he never wanted that for you. But either way, this question of why we're here, where it's all headed, and whether this is there's something bigger going on, is a basic set of questions that everyone asks in their life, and I'm sure you do too, wherever you're at. But every day we live with fear and disappointment, don't we? Whether it could be money or health or job security or what's going on at school or college for you. It could be relationships that you can't seem to make happen or are broken. But at the same time, every day, don't we, at some level, we wake up with hope that maybe something today will be worth celebrating or enjoying. Life is made up of these moments that come and go in our lives. It's like something inside of us knows that some things are good and some things are bad. Like some things belong and some things don't. And in the Bible, we read story after story of Jesus having these moments with people, connecting with people, but more importantly, changing their reality and their perception of reality inside these moments. Sometimes he healed people's bodies, sometimes he healed their minds, but one thing he always did was point towards the larger picture of what belonged inside that larger picture and what didn't. One where there was a God who was behind it all. God, he said, was behind the conversation that we're having now, and he was behind the 200 billion galaxies. And one day Jesus got into a conversation with a man who was meant to be a teacher about God to other people. And we get to read about this conversation. It's one of the wonderful things about the Bible. We get to see Jesus' moments with people. And it's in a book called John. And it says this: there was a man called Nicodemus, and he was a prominent leader amongst Jewish people. And late one night he visited Jesus and he said, "Rabbi, we all know you're a teacher straight from God. No one could do all the God-pointing, God-revealing acts that you do if God weren't in on it." And Jesus said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Take it from me. Unless a person is born from above, it is not possible to see what I'm pointing to God's kingdom." "But how can anyone," said Nicodemus, "be born who has already been born and grown up?" You can't re-enter your mum's womb and be born again. What are you saying with this born from above talk? And Jesus said, no, you're not listening. Let me say it again. Unless a person submits to this original creation, the invisible moving amongst the visible, a baptism into a new life, it is not possible to enter God's kingdom. When you look at a baby, it's just like that. It's a body that you can look at and touch, but the person who takes shape within is formed by something that you can't see or touch, the Spirit, and becomes a loving spirit. I find those words incredible from Jesus. So don't, he says, be so surprised when I tell you that you have to be born from above, out of this world, so to speak. You know well enough how the wind blows this way and that. It's doing it at the moment. You hear it rustling through the trees, but you've no idea where it's coming from and where it's going to, or where it's headed next. And that's the way it is with everyone born from above by the wind of God, the Spirit of God. And Jesus, Nicodemus said, what do you mean by this? How does this happen? And Jesus said, come on, you're a respected teacher of Israel and you don't know these basics. Listen carefully to me. I'm speaking sober truth to you. I speak only of what I know by experience. I give witness only to what I have seen with my own eyes. There is nothing second-hand here, no hearsay. Yet instead of facing the evidence and accepting it, you procrastinate with questions. If I tell you things that are as plain as the hand before your face and you don't believe me, what use is there in telling you these things about you can't see, the things of God? And then he said this. This is how much God loved the world. He gave his Son, his one and only Son, and this is why. Excuse me. So that no one need be destroyed. By believing in him, anyone can have a whole and lasting life. God didn't go to all the trouble of sending his Son merely to point an accusing finger, telling the world how bad it was. He came to help, to put the world right again. Now, I don't know what you think of as you sit and think about God as you're sat here today, but when I read these words, I hear the words of a loving dad, one who was so desperate to connect and restore everything that's gone wrong, that he wants to meet us right here and now. But also, and more importantly, he wants to give us hope. Hope that tomorrow is not just another day before you die, but rather that reality is more than what you can just see in front of your face. Reality is me holding my son on that first day, but it was also the unseen. It was my love for him, and that is how God holds you. And he holds you even closer than I held Noah on that day. He holds you with eternity in his mind, not just for this life, but you know some things belong and some things don't, and that is what God is interested in. He wants to get rid of the rubbish in your life, the things that aren't love, the things that aren't peace, the things that mean that we don't sacrifice and love one another well. Now today, as Alice and Bella have gotten baptized, they're saying that what is happening in their lives is not just what has happened right in front of their eyes. It's what's happening to the whole picture. They are connected and have seen a larger reality now. They've given themselves to a God who is doing stuff in the world, and they are realizing and finding their place inside it. They have said yes to a reality that is more than just this life. They have said yes to eternity, a reality which has its values and is headed somewhere. Now, you know, Alice and Bella are incredibly special people. But you know, God doesn't hold them any differently or any more specially than he holds you. He doesn't hold them in any differently in his arms. He doesn't look at them any differently, although he looks at them uniquely. He has the same heart for every single one of you. He looks at you just the same. Now, they have said yes to Jesus. But I wonder, in all the stuff that you've seen today, and all this stuff that you see in this incredible world, even as we're sat in this amphitheatre now, will you say yes to Jesus? You know, if something has moved you today, and I'm sure it has at some level, or if what Alice and Bella have shared, it would be amazing just to grab you and chat to you afterwards. I'm sure Alice and Bella would love to chat to you. Any of us leaders here, please come and grab you, because we would love to tell you more about this Jesus who came so that you might have life and life in all its fullness. Amen.